My only daughter forgot my birthday. Once again. But this time, I decided to use my $2.60 to buy myself a yacht. I walked to the kitchen drawer where I kept important phone numbers written on index cards. Old school, but reliable. The yacht dealer's card was third from the top, Captain Bob's Marine Sails, Clearwater Beach. Have you ever felt invisible in your own life? Has your family ever treated you like you don't exist? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. The phone didn't ring. Not once. I counted the hours until I stopped counting altogether. If you've ever wondered how far someone would go to prove they still matter, this story will shake you to your core. Have you ever felt invisible in your own life? Has your family ever treated you like you don't exist? Do you know someone who's been erased while still breathing? What happens when a forgotten father decides to buy himself a yacht? And his own daughter tries to stop him with the law? Follow along as we reveal a family betrayal that goes deeper than anyone imagined. The phone didn't ring. Not once. I counted the hours until I stopped counting altogether. March 15th started like every other day in my Clearwater condo. The Gulf of Mexico stretched endless outside my kitchen window, morning light dancing across water that never seemed to care about birthdays or broken promises. I poured coffee into the same blue mug I'd used for 3 years, the one Martha bought me before the cancer took her voice away. 72 years old today. Not a single call. The silence felt heavy, like humidity before a storm. I checked my phone twice, battery full, signal strong, volume up. Nothing wrong with the technology. Everything wrong with the connections that mattered. I walked past the dining room table where my financial papers lived in neat stacks. Bank statements, investment reports, the thick folder from when I sold Martha's Bakery back in Toledo. Numbers that told the story of a careful life. $2.6 million accumulated through 40 years of 6-day work weeks, smart investments, and never spending money on things that didn't matter. The yacht brochure sat next to my coffee cup like a dare. Seawind 45, Sleeps 8, full galley, navigation system that could guide you anywhere you wanted to go. I'd circled the price in red ink 3 weeks ago, $485,000. Not cheap, but not crazy for a man who'd earned every dollar twice over. My daughter Rebecca lived 2 states away in Atlanta, building her career as a corporate attorney. Last time we spoke was Christmas, a 15-minute phone call where she mostly talked about billable hours and court cases. Before that, Thanksgiving, another quick check-in between client meetings. The pattern had become predictable. Holidays meant duty calls. Birthdays meant silence. I picked up the yacht brochure, feeling the glossy paper between my fingers. The boat looked proud sitting at the dock, white hull gleaming, American flag snapping in the breeze. The kind of vessel that made statements without saying words. If your own family treats you like you don't exist, what's your breaking point? Subscribe, this gets much worse before it gets better. The clock on the microwave read 10:47 a.m. Most people my age were settling into routines of doctor visits and early bird dinners. I was thinking about 30-foot boats and open water. Martha used to say money was just paper until you used it for something that mattered. She'd approve of this decision, I thought. She always wanted to travel, see the coast from the water side, feel the salt air without worrying about hotel reservations or driving schedules. I walked to the kitchen drawer where I kept important phone numbers written on index cards. Old school, but reliable. The yacht dealer's card was third from the top, Captain Bob's Marine Sails, Clearwater Beach. The morning sun climbed higher, warming the glass. Somewhere in Atlanta, my daughter was probably in meetings, making partner-track decisions, living the life she'd built without much space for an old man in Florida. I dialed the yacht dealer. By noon, I'd put down a deposit that would change everything. Would you buy something big just to prove you still matter? Comment visibility if you've been there. The deposit slip had more zeros than I'd written in decades. The salesman's smile told me he'd never seen an old man this determined. Bayshore Marina smelled like salt water, diesel fuel, and fiberglass dreams. Captain Bob's office sat right on the dock, windows facing a forest of masts and rigging that sang in the breeze. Boats of every size bobbed in their slips like expensive toys waiting for someone brave enough to play. Bob Martinez was maybe 50, weathered hands and eyes that had seen storms. He didn't treat me like a confused senior citizen browsing boats he couldn't afford. He treated me like a customer with cash and decision-making ability. "She's a beauty," he said, leading me down the dock towards slip 37. Previous owner took excellent care of her. Low hours on the engines, all maintenance records included. The Seawind 45 looked even better in person than in the brochure. Clean lines, spacious deck, cabin windows that promised comfortable nights at anchor. I stepped aboard, feeling the gentle rock beneath my feet, imagining Martha beside me watching dolphins play in the wake. "Full electronics package," Bob continued, showing me the navigation system. GPS, radar, fish finder, VHF radio. Everything you need for coastal cruising or longer trips if you're feeling adventurous. I wasn't feeling adventurous. I was feeling forgotten, which sometimes requires the same response. We spent an hour going through every detail. Engine compartment spotless, galley equipped for serious cooking, master stateroom with a bed big enough for dreams that had been sleeping alone too long. The price was fair, the condition excellent, the timing perfect. "I'll take her," I said. Bob's eyebrows rose slightly. Not skeptical, just surprised by the speed of decision. "Don't you want to bring your wife down to see her? Most couples like to make this choice together. My wife died 4 years ago. This decision is mine alone." He nodded, understanding crossing his face. We walked back to his office where I signed papers and arranged the wire transfer. $485,000 moved from my savings account to his business account while I watched. Electronic numbers representing decades of early mornings and careful choices. "Delivery in 2 weeks," Bob said, shaking my hand. "Insurance paperwork, registration, brief orientation on all systems. You picked a fine vessel, Mr. Morrison." The receipt felt solid in my wallet as I drove home. Proof of purchase, proof of choice, proof that Frank Morrison still existed in ways that mattered. The call came Tuesday. Rebecca's voice was ice. "Daddy, we need to talk." "Ever made a purchase that scared your own family?" "What was it?" She didn't ask how I was. She asked how much I spent before I'd even said hello. "Daddy, I got a call from your bank." Rebecca's voice carried the sharp edge she used in depositions, all business and no warmth. "They said you made a large withdrawal. What's going on?" I sat in my kitchen, the yacht brochure still open on the counter, Florida sunshine streaming through windows that suddenly felt like prison bars. My own daughter was questioning me like a hostile witness. "I bought a boat, Rebecca. A nice one." The silence stretched long enough for me to count 3 pelicans flying past my window. "How much?" she asked. "Enough." "Daddy, I need numbers." My financial advisor says large purchases at your age can indicate cognitive decline. Are you thinking clearly? Your financial advisor? When did my money become committee business? I'm thinking clearly enough to know when I'm being treated like a child, I said, keeping my voice level. The boat cost $485,000. I paid cash. I have plenty left over. Nearly $500,000? Her voice climbed an octave. For a boat? Daddy, you live in a condo. Where are you going to keep it? How often will you use it? Have you thought about maintenance costs, insurance, docking fees? Each question felt like a slap. She was talking to me the way I used to talk to customers who wanted to special order wedding cakes without understanding the work involved. I've thought about everything, Rebecca. I'm not senile. I didn't say you were senile. But this seems impulsive. Out of character. You've always been so careful with money. Maybe being careful got me a daughter who calls once every 3 months and forgets my birthday completely. The words hung between us like smoke from a grease fire, impossible to take back, impossible to ignore. I didn't forget your birthday. You didn't call either. Another long silence. I could hear papers shuffling in the background, probably client files more important than her father's feelings. When someone you love uses law as a weapon against you, trust breaks forever. Subscribe, you need to see how this unfolds. Look, Daddy, I'm concerned about your judgment. Making major financial decisions alone, especially at your age, can be problematic. I think we need to discuss some protective measures. Protective measures? Power of attorney arrangements. Maybe a financial conservatorship. Just to make sure you're not taken advantage of. The words hit like cold water. My own daughter wanted to take control of my money, my choices, my life. All because I bought something that made me happy. I'm not signing anything, Rebecca. You don't have to sign anything. There are legal processes. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I let it go to voicemail. Then again. Voicemail. On the fourth ring, I turned the phone off completely. After she hung up, I found the letter in my mailbox. Emergency competency hearing stamped across the top. Has someone ever questioned your right to spend your own money? How did you respond? The petition had my daughter's signature, but the words felt like a stranger's attack. The envelope arrived certified mail, return receipt requested. Official business that couldn't be ignored or thrown away. I signed for it Tuesday afternoon, the mail carrier giving me the sympathetic look reserved for people receiving bad news. Petition for emergency guardianship and conservatorship, read the header in bold black letters. Below that, smaller text that made my stomach drop. In the matter of Frank Morrison, alleged incapacitated person. Alleged incapacitated person. My daughter had reduced me to a legal problem requiring court intervention. I read every word twice, then 3 times, hoping the meaning would change. It didn't. According to the document, I was suffering from cognitive decline evidenced by impulsive financial decisions and lack of judgment regarding major purchases. The yacht became Exhibit A in the case against my mental capacity. Rebecca had hired an Atlanta law firm, not her own, probably to avoid conflict of interest questions. Smart lawyer thinking. The petition requested immediate freezing of my accounts to prevent further financial harm, and appointment of a professional conservator, until such time as proper evaluation can be completed. The hearing was scheduled for next Tuesday. 8 days to prepare a defense against my own child. I tried calling my bank, hoping to move some money before the freeze hit. Too late. Mr. Morrison, we've received a court order restricting account access pending legal proceedings. I'm sorry, but I can't process any transactions at this time. The yacht dealer was more understanding but equally powerless. I'm sorry, Frank. The wire transfer was reversed this morning. Legal hold on the funds. I'll keep the boat available for 30 days, but after that. My $485,000 had vanished into legal limbo. My independence had been suspended by judicial order. My own daughter had turned the law into a weapon pointed directly at my heart. The petition included a psychological evaluation request. They wanted me examined by a court-appointed psychiatrist who would determine whether I possessed sufficient mental capacity to manage my affairs. 72 years of good decisions meant nothing compared to one boat purchase that scared a daughter who called 3 times per year. I sat in my kitchen as afternoon became evening, reading legal language designed to strip away everything I'd built. The words were cold, clinical, devastating. Respondent shows signs of diminished capacity, impulsive behavior, potential for financial exploitation. Financial exploitation. They were protecting me from myself. The cruelest part was how reasonable it sounded on paper. An elderly widower making sudden large purchases, isolated from family, potentially vulnerable to scammers and bad advice. A judge who didn't know me would see legitimate concerns requiring protective action. I sat with the frozen account notice until sunset. Then I remembered Martha's old law books in the garage. When the system turns against you, where do you find the strength to fight back? Martha's law books smelled like vanilla and determination. She'd highlighted passages about elder abuse in bright yellow. The garage hadn't been touched since Martha died. Her reading chair sat exactly where she'd left it, law books stacked on the small table beside it like loyal soldiers waiting for orders. She'd been studying for the paralegal certificate she never got to finish, dreaming of helping people navigate legal problems in her retirement years. I pulled the dusty chain on the overhead light and opened the first book, Elder Law and Family Dynamics. Martha's handwriting filled the margins, neat cursive that still made my chest tight after 4 years. Page 47 had 3 yellow highlights and a note: adult children often use concern as control. Look for patterns of isolation and financial monitoring. Financial monitoring. Rebecca had been checking my accounts for months before the yacht purchase. The bank records would show her inquiries, her questions about my spending habits, her requests for balance updates. She'd been building a case long before I gave her ammunition. I found Martha's notebook wedged between probate procedures and guardianship law. Her research on financial abuse cases, complete with case numbers and outcomes. She'd been thorough, just like everything else in her life. Morrison versus Morrison, similar facts, she'd written. Son attempted conservatorship over father's real estate investments. Court denied, no evidence of impairment, pattern of sound financial decisions. My hands shook slightly as I turned pages filled with my wife's careful research. She'd been preparing for battles I didn't know were coming, arming herself with knowledge that might save me now. The section on defending against frivolous guardianship petitions was heavily annotated. Martha had highlighted the requirements: clear evidence of incapacity, proof of necessity, consideration of less restrictive alternatives. Rebecca's petition would need more than one boat purchase to meet that standard. I pulled out my financial records and spread them across Martha's reading table. 30 years of bank statements, investment reports, tax returns, insurance payments, all showing consistent, rational decision-making. The yacht wasn't impulsive, it was the first thing I'd bought for myself since Martha's funeral. Her notebook included contact information for elder law attorneys across Florida. Names, phone numbers, specialties. At the top of the list, Earl Hutchinson, Tallahassee. Retired but takes special cases. Beat his own son in court. Beat his own son in court. Martha had found me a kindred spirit before I knew I'd need one. I copied the important pages, organized the financial documents chronologically, and prepared a timeline of Rebecca's escalating control attempts. Phone calls asking about my spending, questions about my health, suggestions about simplifying my finances by giving her power of attorney. The evidence told a clear story. A competent elderly man being targeted by a controlling adult child who mistook concern for ownership. Martha's final note in the margin read, "Truth always wins if you present it properly. Don't let anyone erase your voice." The phone rang. Unknown number, Florida area code. "Mr. Morrison? I heard you might need help. Have you ever found exactly what you needed in the most unexpected place?" Earl Hutchinson had been cheated by his own son. His voice carried the calm of someone who'd already won a war like mine. "Margaret Chin called me," Earl said, his voice steady through the phone. "Court clerk in Tallahassee. She mentioned your situation and thought I might offer some perspective." I'd never met Margaret Chin, but apparently Martha's research network extended further than I'd realized. Small-town connections that mattered when family turned against you. "My son tried the same thing 8 years ago," Earl continued. "Claimed I was losing my mind because I bought a classic car at auction. Wanted conservatorship over my assets, said I was being manipulated by unscrupulous dealers. What happened? I beat him in court. Thoroughly. The judge was not impressed with adult children who confused parental concern with financial control." Earl's story matched mine almost perfectly. Successful professional child, elderly parent making independent purchase, emergency guardianship petition filed without warning. The playbook was apparently standard among controlling families. "The key is documentation," Earl said. "You need to prove competence, not defend against claims of incompetence. Show them who you really are. Sometimes help comes from someone who's walked your exact path. Subscribe. The network Frank builds will amaze you. He walked me through the strategy. Financial records going back years, medical records showing good health, character witnesses who could testify to my judgment and capacity. Most importantly, evidence of Rebecca's monitoring and control attempts. She's been tracking your finances for months, Earl said after I described the bank inquiries. That's not concern, that's surveillance. Courts don't like family members who treat parents like probation subjects. Earl gave me Margaret Chen's direct number and suggested I drive to Tallahassee tomorrow. She knows the local judges, understands the system. More importantly, she's seen cases like this before. What's her angle? I asked. Why would a court clerk help a stranger? Because she's watched too many competent elderly people get railroaded by impatient children. It offends her sense of justice. We talked for 40 minutes. Earl gave me names of witnesses to contact, documents to request from my bank, medical records to gather. He also gave me something more valuable, the certainty that I could win this fight. Your daughter made a tactical error, he said. She filed emergency guardianship instead of building a stronger case over time. Emergency requires immediate danger, and buying a boat doesn't qualify. The judge will see this as what it is, family control masquerading as protection. How do you know? Because I've been practicing elder law for 40 years. I know overreach when I see it. Earl's final advice stuck with me after we hung up: don't defend your boat purchase. Defend your right to make boat purchases. There's a difference, and the judge will understand it. Who's the person who helped you when your family wouldn't? I spread 30 years of financial records across my dining room table like a general planning battle strategy. The documents told a story Rebecca's lawyer couldn't dispute. Bank statements showing steady deposits, conservative investments, bills paid on time every month for 3 decades. Insurance premiums, property taxes, utility payments. All automated, all handled responsibly. The yacht purchase wasn't an anomaly. It was the first personal expenditure I'd made since Martha's funeral. I organized everything chronologically, starting with my first paycheck from the bakery in 1978. Martha and I had been careful savers, modest spenders, responsible with every dollar we earned. The paper trail proved competence in ways that courtroom testimony couldn't match. But the most damaging evidence was what I found hidden in the bank statements. 7 separate inquiries from Atlanta over the past 6 months. Rebecca had been monitoring my accounts, asking questions about my spending patterns, requesting balance updates. The bank manager had notes in my file. Daughter expressed concerns about customers' judgment. Requested notification of large transactions. Requested notification of large transactions. Rebecca had turned my bank into her personal surveillance system. I called the bank's customer service line, recording the conversation on Martha's old cassette recorder. Can you tell me about account monitoring requests from authorized parties? I asked. Well, Mr. Morrison, your daughter contacted us several times expressing concerns about potential financial exploitation. She asked us to flag any unusual activity for review. Did I authorize this monitoring? No, sir, but family members often reach out when they're worried about elderly relatives. We took her concerns under advisement. They'd been spying on me without my knowledge or consent, treating me like a confused old man who couldn't be trusted with his own money. The timeline was clear. Rebecca's monitoring intensified after Martha died, peaked around my birthday when I started looking at boats, and culminated in the guardianship petition immediately after the yacht purchase. She hadn't been concerned about my mental capacity. She'd been concerned about my independence. I found the yacht dealer's business card and called Captain Bob. I need copies of all our interactions, I told him. Phone calls, emails, the sales meeting. Everything. You seemed perfectly competent to me, Frank. Knew exactly what you wanted, asked smart questions, negotiated fairly. I've sold boats to people half your age who showed less judgment. Smart questions. Negotiated fairly. Bob's assessment would carry weight with a judge who understood the difference between impulsive purchases and informed decisions. The bank surveillance records got copied. The yacht dealer's assessment got documented. Medical records from my annual physical, perfect blood pressure, clean cognitive assessment, got requested from Dr. Martinez's office. By evening, my dining room table looked like mission control for a legal counterattack. 30 years of responsible financial management versus one boat purchase that scared a daughter who preferred her father invisible and manageable. Martha's notebook lay open beside the evidence, present facts, not feelings. Judges decide on documentation, not desperation. I copied everything twice, time-stamped each page, organized it all in 3-ring binders labeled Financial Competence, Family Interference, and Character Assessment. If someone was secretly monitoring your money, how long before you'd notice? Margaret Shin didn't look like someone who could stop a legal freight train. Her quiet confidence said otherwise. The Leon County Courthouse felt like a tomb, marble floors, high ceilings, voices echoing off walls that had witnessed decades of human drama. Margaret's office was tucked in the basement, a small space crammed with filing cabinets and legal books that probably hadn't been updated since the 1990s. Earl told me about your situation, she said, gesturing toward a chair that had seen better decades. Family conservatorship cases are tricky. Judges have to balance protection with autonomy. Margaret was maybe 50, gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She'd been a court clerk for 23 years, which meant she'd seen every variation of family legal warfare. "Show me what you've got," she said. I spread my evidence across her desk: financial records, bank surveillance documentation, yacht dealer assessment, medical records. She reviewed everything with the methodical patience of someone who understood that details mattered more than drama. "This is good," she said after 20 minutes. "Very good. Your daughter's petition is weak on facts and heavy on assumptions. Can you help? I can file your response and make sure it gets proper attention. Judge Williams handles most competency cases. He's fair but thorough. Doesn't like family members who waste court time with control issues." Margaret explained the process. Emergency guardianship required proof of immediate danger and incapacity. Rebecca's petition showed neither. A single large purchase by someone with excellent financial history didn't meet the emergency standard. "We'll file a comprehensive response challenging the petition's legal sufficiency," Margaret said. "Include your financial documentation, medical records, character references. Make them prove their case instead of making you prove your competence. One person who knows the system can change everything. Subscribe. Frank's about to turn the tables completely." She pulled forms from a filing cabinet, began typing my response on a computer that belonged in a museum. The formal language transformed my situation into legal arguments that judges would understand. "Your daughter made several procedural errors," Margaret said, printing pages. "Filed in Georgia when you're a Florida resident. Requested emergency relief without emergency circumstances. Asked for conservatorship without following proper evaluation protocols." What does that mean? It means she was either poorly advised or in a hurry. Either way, it helps your case. Margaret called Judge Williams' chambers, arranged for expedited review of my response, and scheduled a phone conference for tomorrow morning. The system could move quickly when someone who understood it was pushing the right buttons. "One more thing," she said as I prepared to leave. "Your daughter's lawyer will probably try to settle out of court once they realize how weak their position is. Don't take the first offer. Make them earn their withdrawal." Her final stamp came down firm and decisive on my response documents. "When you're fighting the system, who would you want in your corner?" Rebecca's lawyer made a mistake. He sent me copies of documents I wasn't supposed to see. The package arrived Thursday morning via express delivery. Discovery materials, Morrison guardianship case, written in black marker across a manila envelope thick enough to contain serious trouble. Inside were copies of everything Rebecca's legal team had gathered to support their petition: medical opinions I'd never heard of, financial assessments based on incomplete information, and most shocking of all, a complete plan for managing my protected assets after the conservatorship was granted. The medical opinion came from a psychiatrist I'd never met, Dr. Patricia Vance of Atlanta. Her report concluded that elderly individuals who make sudden major purchases often exhibit signs of diminished cognitive capacity requiring protective intervention. She diagnosed me without ever speaking to me, based solely on Rebecca's description of my behavior. The financial assessment was equally damaging and equally fraudulent. An accountant had analyzed my spending patterns and concluded that the yacht purchase represented a significant departure from established financial behavior, suggesting impaired judgment. He'd ignored 30 years of consistent financial management to focus on one transaction that scared my daughter. But the real shock was buried on page 17, a detailed plan for liquidating my assets for protection purposes. Rebecca had already contacted a financial advisor about selling my investments and moving the proceeds into protected accounts under conservator management. The yacht purchase was just the beginning. She intended to liquidate everything and manage my money from Atlanta. The plan included selling my condo and moving me to assisted living in Georgia, closer to family support systems. Sunset Manor had already been contacted. A private room was available for $4,800 per month, paid directly from my managed estate. They'd planned my entire future without my input or consent. The most damaging document was an email chain between Rebecca and her financial advisor, discussing the timeline for asset protection and strategies for convincing Dad this is for his own good. One email made my blood run cold. Hospital records from last year's routine surgery show he was confused about discharge instructions. We can use that to support diminished capacity claims. I'd been groggy after anesthesia, like every patient recovering from minor surgery. Rebecca was planning to use normal post-surgical confusion as evidence of cognitive decline. The documents revealed a conspiracy that went far beyond protecting my finances. This was about controlling my life, my future, my freedom to make choices that didn't align with Rebecca's preferences. I called Earl immediately. "They sent you their internal planning documents?" he asked after I read him the key passages. "That's attorney malpractice. You're not supposed to see their strategy memos." "What do I do with this?" "You use it to destroy their case. They've just proven this isn't about protection, it's about control. Forward everything to Margaret immediately." The assisted living facility was already reserved. Room 12B, paid for 3 months in advance. When would planning someone's future become planning their prison? I didn't call Rebecca. I called her law firm's ethics board instead. Friday morning, I sat in my kitchen with Margaret's instructions spread before me like battle plans. The discovery documents had given us everything we needed to turn defense into offense. First call, Georgia State Bar Ethics Hotline. "I need to report potential attorney misconduct," I told the intake specialist. "A law firm is representing my daughter in a guardianship case while simultaneously planning to profit from managing my assets." The ethics violation was clear. Rebecca's attorney had financial interests in the conservatorship outcome through his relationship with the financial advisor who would manage my liquidated assets. Conflict of interest, plain and simple. Second call, Leon County Sheriff's Office, Elder Abuse Division. "I have documentation showing family members planning to liquidate my assets and institutionalize me against my will," I explained to Detective Rivera. "Is this something your department investigates?" It was. Detective Rivera requested copies of all documentation and opened a preliminary investigation into potential elder financial abuse. Third call, Channel 8 News Consumer Protection Unit. "Are you interested in a story about adult children using the court system to control elderly parents' finances?" I asked the assignment editor. They were very interested. When someone underestimates you, the comeback hits twice as hard. Subscribe, the courtroom showdown is next. By noon, I'd filed ethics complaints, provided evidence to law enforcement, and scheduled a television interview for Monday morning, the day before the court hearing. Margaret called with updates. "Judge Williams reviewed your response and the discovery materials. He's moved the hearing to his courtroom instead of a conference room. That means he's taking this seriously." Good serious or bad serious? Good for you, bad for them. Conference rooms are for rubber stamp approvals. Courtrooms are for actual legal proceedings. Earl called with more good news. I reached out to 3 other attorneys who've handled similar cases. They're all willing to provide depositions about the procedural irregularities in your daughter's petition. The momentum had shifted completely. Rebecca's surprise legal attack was becoming a public relations disaster and potential criminal investigation. My phone rang at 4 o'clock. Rebecca's number. Daddy, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There's been no misunderstanding. I've seen your real plans. What plans? Room 12B at Sunset Manor. The financial advisor arrangements. The asset liquidation timeline. Your lawyer sent me everything by mistake. Silence stretched across the phone connection. Daddy, let's talk about this reasonably. Reasonably? You want to put me in a nursing home and steal my money, but you want to discuss it reasonably? I never said steal. What would you call it? I'm trying to protect you. From what? From living my own life? The Channel 8 reporter wanted an interview. Rebecca would see it before the hearing. Is going public worth the risk when family is involved? The news van pulled up as Rebecca's Mercedes turned the corner. Perfect timing. Channel 8's consumer protection reporter, Jessica Martinez, had done her homework. She knew about the yacht purchase, the guardianship petition, the discovery documents revealing Rebecca's real intentions. When she asked if I was ready to go on camera, I was more than ready. Mr. Morrison, tell our viewers what's happening with your family, Jessica said, holding the microphone steady while her cameraman framed the shot. My daughter is trying to have me declared mentally incompetent because I bought a boat, I said, looking directly into the camera. She wants control of my money and plans to put me in a nursing home against my will. You have documentation supporting these claims? I held up the discovery packet. Her lawyer accidentally sent me their internal planning documents. They've already reserved a room at an assisted living facility in Georgia. They want to liquidate my assets and manage the proceeds themselves. Jessica's eyebrows rose. This was better television than she'd expected. What's your response to family members who say they're concerned about your welfare? If Rebecca was concerned about my welfare, she would have called on my birthday. She would have visited more than twice in 4 years. She would have asked what I wanted instead of deciding what I needed. The interview lasted 15 minutes. Jessica asked tough questions about my age, my financial decisions, my plans for the yacht. I answered everything directly, calmly, competently. The camera captured a rational elderly man defending his right to independence, not a confused senior requiring protection. Rebecca's Mercedes sat parked across the street during the entire interview. She didn't approach, didn't interrupt, just watched from behind tinted windows as her legal strategy became a public relations nightmare. After the news crew left, Rebecca finally got out of her car. She looked exactly like she had 4 years ago at Martha's funeral, perfectly dressed, completely composed, emotionally distant. Daddy, we need to talk. We talked yesterday. You hung up on me. Going to the media was unnecessary. This is a family matter. You made it a legal matter when you filed guardianship papers. You made it a public matter when you planned to steal my money. I'm not stealing anything. I'm trying to protect you. From what? She gestured toward my condo, my quiet neighborhood, my simple retirement life. From making mistakes you can't afford. From people who might take advantage of you. From decisions you might regret. Like buying a boat that makes me happy? Like spending $500,000 on something you'll use twice a year. It's my $500,000, Rebecca. Rebecca's phone started ringing during our conversation. Then again. Then continuously. Her law firm's senior partners were probably watching Channel 8 along with every other viewer in Central Florida. The news story would air at 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock, reaching hundreds of thousands of people who would see a competent elderly man being attacked by his own daughter. Public sympathy was a powerful force in family legal battles. The hearing is tomorrow, Rebecca said as her phone rang again. We can still work this out privately. Work what out? Your plan to put me in a nursing home? Your arrangement to manage my money from Atlanta? Your scheme to liquidate everything I've worked for? Those were just contingency plans. Those were your real intentions. Everything else was just legal paperwork. Rebecca's phone rang continuously as she got back in her Mercedes. Her law firm's senior partners were watching too. Have you ever seen someone's scheme collapse in real time? The judge looked at Rebecca's petition, then at my 3 boxes of evidence. His eyebrow raised just enough. Leon County Courthouse, Courtroom 3B, Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock sharp. Judge Williams presided from behind a bench that had witnessed 40 years of family disputes, custody battles, and legal warfare between people who used to love each other. Rebecca sat at the petitioner's table with her Atlanta lawyer, both wearing expensive suits and worried expressions. The Channel 8 story had aired twice, generating calls to the court clerk's office and questions about the case from other media outlets. I sat at the respondent's table with Margaret Chin, who'd taken vacation time to help represent me. My evidence boxes were organized, labeled, and ready for presentation. This is an emergency guardianship petition, Judge Williams began, reading from Rebecca's filing. The petitioner claims respondent lacks capacity to manage his affairs due to impulsive financial decisions. Rebecca's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, Mr. Morrison recently made a nearly $500,000 purchase without consulting family members. This represents a significant departure from his historical financial behavior and raises serious questions about his decision-making capacity. What was the purchase? Judge Williams asked. A yacht, Your Honor. Judge Williams looked at me, then back at the lawyer. A yacht. And Mr. Morrison has how much in total assets? Approximately $2.6 million, Your Honor. So he spent roughly 18% of his net worth on a recreational vehicle? Yes, Your Honor, which we contend shows impaired judgment. Counselor, I've seen people spend more than that on cars. What else do you have? Rebecca's lawyer fumbled through medical opinions from doctors who'd never examined me, financial assessments based on incomplete information, and character witnesses who hadn't spoken to me in years. Margaret stood for my response. Your Honor, we have 30 years of financial records showing consistent, responsible money management. Medical records showing perfect cognitive function. Character witnesses who can attest to Mr. Morrison's competence and judgment. She presented my evidence methodically: bank statements, investment reports, the yacht dealer's assessment, Dr. Martinez's cognitive evaluation results. Every document supported the same conclusion: a competent elderly man making an informed purchase decision. Furthermore, Your Honor, Margaret continued, we have evidence suggesting this petition is not about protection but about control. She handed the judge copies of Rebecca's planning documents, the assisted living arrangements, the asset liquidation timeline. Judge Williams read silently for 5 minutes while the courtroom waited. His expression grew more skeptical with each page. Ms. Morrison, he said, addressing Rebecca directly. Did you reserve a room at an assisted living facility before filing this petition? Rebecca's face went pale. Your Honor, that was just precautionary planning. Precautionary planning for what? In case the court determined that supervised living was necessary for my father's welfare. Without consulting your father about his preferences? I felt, that professional guidance was appropriate. Judge Williams set the documents down, removed his reading glasses, and looked directly at Rebecca with the expression of someone who'd seen this exact scenario too many times. This petition is denied. Mr. Morrison has demonstrated clear competence to manage his affairs. His financial decision, while perhaps surprising to family members, falls well within the bounds of rational choice. The hearing was over in 45 minutes. When justice finally speaks, does it sound as sweet as you imagined? The Seawind 45 gleamed in Clearwater sunshine. Finally, she was mine. 3 weeks after the court dismissed Rebecca's petition, Captain Bob called with the news I'd been waiting for. Frank, your boat's ready for delivery. All systems checked, insurance processed, registration complete. When can you come down for orientation? I drove to Bayshore Marina with windows down, salt air filling my lungs, freedom tasting better than any meal I'd cooked in months. The legal battle was over, my accounts were unfrozen, and my yacht was waiting at slip 37 like a promise kept. Bob met me at the dock with a clipboard full of paperwork and a smile that said he'd been following the court case on local news. "Hell of a fight you put up," he said, shaking my hand. "That daughter of yours picked the wrong old man to mess with." The boat looked even better than I remembered. Clean white hull reflecting morning sunlight, teak deck warm under my feet, electronics humming with readiness. Everything exactly as I'd ordered, down to the extra navigation lights and upgraded sound system. "Let's go through the systems," Bob said, leading me into the cabin. He showed me every switch, every gauge, every control that would help me navigate Florida waters safely. The refrigerator was stocked with basics, the fuel tanks were full, and the GPS was programmed with my home marina coordinates. "She's all yours, Frank. Treat her well." I signed the final paperwork while sitting in the captain's chair, my hands steady on documents that proved ownership, registration, and insurance coverage. Legal proof that Frank Morrison still made his own decisions about his own life. The keys felt solid in my palm, metal proof that I'd won more than a court case. I'd won the right to be myself. A small crowd had gathered on the dock. Margaret Shen had driven down from Tallahassee with a bottle of champagne for the christening. Earl Hutchinson had flown in from Tampa, curious to meet the man who'd followed his battle plan to victory. Even Detective Rivera from the Elder Abuse Unit stopped by to see how the story ended. "What are you going to name her?" Margaret asked as we prepared for the traditional boat blessing. I'd been thinking about that question for weeks. The name had to honor the fight, remember the victory, and celebrate the independence that nearly got stolen. "Martha's Revenge," I said. Everyone laughed, understanding exactly what I meant. This wasn't revenge against Rebecca, it was revenge against anyone who thought age made me powerless. Margaret broke the champagne bottle against the hull, and the boat officially became mine in all the ways that mattered. Legal, spiritual, and emotional ownership of something I'd earned through decades of work and months of fighting. Sometimes winning isn't about the prize, it's about proving you deserve it. Subscribe for more stories of people who refuse to be erased. As I started the engine for the first time, my phone rang. Rebecca's number. "Would you answer that call, or let it go to voicemail forever?" Her voice was different this time. Smaller. "Daddy, I'm sorry," carried more weight than any legal document. I was sitting in the captain's chair, Martha's Revenge rocking gently in her slip, when Rebecca's call came through. The phone rang 4 times before I decided to answer. "Hello, Rebecca." "Daddy, I saw the news coverage about the boat delivery." "She's beautiful." I didn't respond immediately. After months of legal warfare, casual conversation felt strange. "I called to apologize," she continued, her voice shaky in ways I hadn't heard since she was a little girl afraid of thunderstorms. "I was wrong. About everything." "Which part was wrong? The guardianship petition or the assisted living arrangements?" "All of it. The whole thing was." She paused, searching for words that didn't come easily to someone who made a living with precise language. "I was scared, Daddy. After Mom died, watching you live alone in Florida, worrying about your health, your safety. The boat purchase felt like you were taking risks I couldn't control." "Since when is your job to control my risks?" "It's not. I know that now. I talked to a therapist after the court hearing. She helped me understand that I was trying to manage my own anxiety about losing you by managing your choices." I steered Martha's Revenge out of the marina, heading toward open water where conversations about family damage required the healing sound of waves against the hull. "Rebecca, you didn't lose me when your mother died. You lost me when you stopped calling." Silence stretched across the phone connection, broken only by seabirds and engine noise. "I know," she finally said. "I thought if I stayed busy with work, if I built this successful career, if I proved I didn't need anyone, then losing people wouldn't hurt as much. How'd that work out?" "Terribly. I almost lost the only parent I have left because I was afraid of losing the only parent I have left." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. The therapist says I need to apologize not just for the legal case, but for 4 years of emotional absence. For missing birthdays, avoiding visits, treating you like an obligation instead of my father. We talked for an hour while I navigated familiar waters Martha and I had dreamed of exploring together. Rebecca told me about her fears, her loneliness, her realization that success without family connection was just expensive isolation. I told her about the birthday mornings when the phone didn't ring, the holidays spent with neighbors instead of relatives, the yacht purchase that started as self-gift and became a declaration of independence. "Can I visit sometime?" she asked as I prepared to dock. "See the boat in person? Maybe we could go out on the water together." "Maybe," I said, meaning it. "We'll see." Forgiveness wasn't instant, but it was possible. Trust would take longer to rebuild, but the foundation was still there under years of neglect and months of legal damage. She asked if she could visit the boat sometime. "Maybe," I said. "We'll see." Can family relationships heal after betrayal? What does forgiveness look like to you? 6 months later, I watched the sunrise from my boat deck. The silence wasn't lonely anymore, it was peaceful. Martha's revenge had become more than transportation or symbol, she'd become home in ways my condo never managed. Mornings started with coffee in the galley, watching dolphins play in the marina. Afternoons meant cruising the Gulf Coast, exploring anchorages Martha and I had circled on old nautical charts. The boat brought unexpected friendship. Other boaters introduced themselves at fuel docks, shared stories about storms weathered and sunsets witnessed. Marina neighbors became genuine friends who appreciated each other's company without requiring constant contact or emotional maintenance. Earl Hutchinson visited monthly, bringing legal war stories and fishing equipment. Margaret Shinn came down from Tallahassee quarterly, usually with court clerks who needed reminding that elderly people weren't automatically incompetent. Rebecca called every Sunday now. Real conversations about her work, my adventures, memories of Martha that made us both laugh instead of cry. She'd visited twice, spending long weekends aboard Martha's Revenge, learning to appreciate the peace I'd found on open water. The legal victory had cost Rebecca her relationship with the Atlanta law firm. They'd quietly asked her to resign after the ethics complaints resulted in formal censure. She'd joined a smaller practice specializing in elder law, representing elderly clients instead of their controlling children. "I'm trying to prevent other families from making my mistakes," she'd told me during her last visit. "Help adult children understand the difference between protection and control." The yacht had proven everything I'd hoped. She was reliable in rough weather, comfortable for overnight trips, spacious enough for the occasional guest who understood that silence could be companionship and solitude could be healing. I kept Martha's photo on the navigation console, positioned so she could see everything: the GPS tracks of our adventures, the logbook filled with anchorage notes, the guest book signed by friends who joined me for sunset cruises and fishing expeditions. The money I'd spent had purchased more than a boat. It had purchased proof that Frank Morrison still made his own decisions, still chose his own adventures, still deserved to be treated as a competent adult capable of managing his own life. Some evenings, I anchored in quiet coves and watched the sun disappear into the Gulf, thinking about the court battle that had tested everything I thought I knew about family loyalty and personal independence. The legal victory mattered less than the personal victory, the realization that age didn't require surrendering autonomy to people who confused love with control. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca: "Thinking about you today. Hope the water's calm and the fish are biting." I typed back, "Water's perfect. Fish are smarter than lawyers. Love you too." The Gulf stretched endless ahead, and for the first time in years, I knew exactly where I was going. Frank proved that age doesn't mean powerless, and family doesn't mean ownership. Subscribe, everyone deserves to captain their own life. What's the one thing you'd buy just to prove you still matter? Share your dream in the comments below.